Welcome to Just the Two of Us Homestead. We are Colleen and Frank, and we live in the perfect size homestead just for us in southwestern Quebec. Gardening, growing food, and preserving is one of our passions. And our barn animals, we love them so much, they're just like pets. And we're so fortunate to be able to live our lives as we do. Each and every day is a blessing. Hi, everyone. Today, we are going to make my mom's chocolate cake, and we just have to do one thing first before we get into it because it has to cool just a bit. So this is the main ingredient that makes it wonderful. I'm just taking a cup of boiling water to half a cup of rolled oats, and I'm just going to let that sit for, oh my gosh, I'm spilling everywhere. Just let it sit for a minute, and then I'm going to tell you all about the recipe and how easy it is, how it's the most delicious, and all that good stuff. Let me get that lid. I'll wash that in a sec. All right, let me just clean up my mess, and I'll be right back. So without even realizing it, I just looked at my phone a little while ago, and today is actually my mom's birthday. So I think it's a bit of divine intervention that I'm doing it today. And I can't figure out how old she would have been. She was born in 1928, so you guys do the math because I can't. I'm going to get a little emotional. So if you can see by my recipe card, this recipe has been in our family since probably before I was born. It has been the cake for every birthday, every celebration, for everything in our family, extended family, for everything. It is the most moist, delicious chocolate cake I've ever tasted. I'm going to put icing on it. That's how I generally have it, but it is so moist. You don't even need the icing. If you're not a big icing fan, you really don't need it. And the rolled oats is what really makes it moist and maybe a little bit healthy. So that's what we're going to make today. And I figured since Valentine's is coming up, it would be something you could make for Valentine's. I'm going to attempt to make a heart-shaped cake today and decorate it up a little bit fancy. So we're going to get going. And usually I use my clear bowl so you guys can see what I'm doing. But since I'm using my traditional recipe, I'm going to use my 40-year-old bowl, and I'll bring you guys in close. We're not even going to do a wet ingredient and a drying ingredient. We're going to do everything all in one bowl. And I'm sure you have everything at home that you need for this recipe. So let's get started. So we're going to take half a cup. The recipe says shortening, but I always use butter. And mine was hard, so I put it in the microwave for what I thought was just a few seconds. So mine's a little bit more than room temperature. One cup of white sugar and a third cup of brown sugar. So we're just going to mix this all together first. Now we need 2 eggs. And I usually like to just scramble them up on the side here a bit. So we're going to mix them in a bit. And this is why we did our oats a bit before, because you want them to have been a little bit cooled down so they don't cook your eggs. So they've plumped up, so we're going to mix that in now. And mix that in. And now our dry ingredients. 1 cup of flour, half a teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and this is another little trick with the recipe. We need 1 teaspoon of baking soda, but we're going to add a little bit of hot water to it from the kettle that we still had hot from the oats. So 1 teaspoon baking soda, and I'm just going to add a little touch of water. And stir it around. Till it's dissolved. There, it's all gone. Okay, we're going to add the cocoa. And this is where I would highly recommend you don't use like a cheap cocoa, not a Hershey's or anything like that. You use a good quality cocoa. And it's 2 heaping tablespoons. And my mom never used a measuring spoon for this. She always took like a large tablespoon, like a soup spoon, and she went like this. 2 heaping tablespoons like that. So that's what I've always done. And that's it. That's all that goes into the cake. And that's the batter. Like, how easy was that? And I'm not going to tell you how I know this, but it's probably one of the best tasting batters I've ever tasted. I promise. So I'm going to make it. This usually makes an 8x8 or a 9x9. You can put it in either one. I usually do an 8x8 because I want it thicker. But I'm going to do it in a round cake pan because I'm going to turn it into a heart shape. Now, if you wanted like a double layer cake, you would have to double the recipe because that's the only size it makes. So, I know even I do this all the time, is spray the pan. But for some reason, this recipe, you can still spray it. But we've always greased it and floured it. And that's how I'm going to do it today. For some reason, it seems to work best with this recipe. I shouldn't have thrown out my wrapper from the butter. Just going to take a little bit of flour and swoosh it around. I might leave some on the spoon. It's a really nice thick batter. And Frank's not a really big cake lover, especially a chocolate cake lover, and he loves this recipe. Just going to smooth it out. So like I said, if you wanted a 2-layer cake, you'd have to double the recipe, or to do like a 9 by 13. Uh-oh, there's stuff on the spatula. Okay, so we're going to bake it for about 35 minutes. I might check it a bit sooner because since I'm cooking it in the round, but it looks to be about the same size. So I'll check it at about 30 minutes. And we're going to start on the icing. I'm going to make a chocolate buttercream icing. It's not my recipe. It's just one I use from online. It just takes a few minutes, but I use the stand mixer, so I'll get that set up and we'll make the icing while that's cooking. I have 1 cup of butter in here that I'm going to beat for about 2 to 3 minutes on high. Okay, the butter is nice and light and fluffy. I scraped the sides down at one point. So now we're going to add 3.5 cups of, in Canada, we call it icing sugar. I know other folks call it powdered sugar. 3 tablespoons. It's supposed to be heavy cream, but I only have half and half. So that's what I'm going with. I might add a bit more cream because I want it really easy to spread. I'll see how it looks. Oops. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla. A pinch of salt. Now here's where I would be adding my cocoa, which is going to be half a cup. But I want a little bit of white icing, so I'm going to mix it up first, take a bit of white icing out, then I'll add the cocoa. Oh. Oh, I'm just going to take some out to have as white icing. I don't need too much. Oop. That should be enough. So now I need, well, I'll put just a little bit less than half a cup of cocoa since I took some out. Okay, that looks perfect. And I'm just going to put it in another bowl. I'm not putting it in the fridge because I want it spreadable. So when the cake comes out, I'll show you that, and we'll let everything cool down, and we will try to create a heart. My timer just went off. Oh, I need another one. It went off for the 30-minute time. Oh, it smells so good. I'm just having a bite of lunch. Perfect. Excuse me. And even if you leave a little bit of cake on it, that's fine because I'm out of breath. It's going to continue to cook. But that's perfect. So good. So I'm really going to let this like cool completely down because I have to cut it and ice it. So everything's good to go. It's just I have to wait a bit. So I'm going to go sit for a bit and I'll see you soon. I just poked my thumb through it. I was going like this to see if it was loose. But we're going to cut that part off because we're going to try and make it flat. I don't want to waste a whole bunch of the cake, so I'm not going to throw this part out. We'll still eat it. But we're going to flip the cake over, so this will allow it to lay flatter. I'm so nervous, guys. Not about the icing or anything, about the cutting the cake to make it into the heart. I watched like a million videos, but other than getting out a measuring tape and doing it all exactly precise, I'm not that kind of gal. All right, that's good enough. I don't want to destroy the whole thing. Don't worry, we'll eat that. Oops, sorry. All right, I want to make sure it's centered. Please come out. Not all of it. I've never used this pan before. So we're just going to stick some back in here. I don't hide anything from you. There. So now that it's fallen apart, it's going to be hard for me to make my heart. Well, let's just go for it. Maybe I did it too big. I have to put icing there. Don't worry, we'll fix it all. Icing's wonderful to hide things. All right, I guess I'll bring you in closer so you can see what I'm doing. Oh my goodness. All right. There's going to be, good thing I'm not using white icing because there's crumbs galore. So what I did was I just cut down there. And what I'm going to do, I feel so bad. I butchered my mom's cake. I mean, the taste is going to be there. So I'm going to use the icing as glue. Like the whole thing just fell apart. I guess I should have done like a test drive with that pan, because I always do it in a little 8x8 pan I have. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. There's no way I'm going to be able to spread icing. And I have a spatula, an offset spatula somewhere, and I can't find it. So uh-oh. This is the worst cake in history. I don't even know if I'm going to put this video up. All right, let's see if we can hide a whole bunch of the flaws. Because if you just look at it from the top, it won't look as bad, right? I don't think I kept enough white icing out. That's why I'm using it sparingly. See, if you just look at it from the top, it's not too bad. I even got little pink roses to put on it. There. So we'll call it good from the top. Well, that was an epic fail of major proportions. That's not how I wanted you to see my mom's cake, but it tastes so good. So don't go by this. I did one a couple of weeks ago, the picture I put in the community post. So I'll put the picture here so you can see how nice it's supposed to look when it's just done in a square pan. But anyway, it's going to taste good. Just, it's not how I wanted to show you a pretty cake. But anyway, we'll eat it just the same. Certainly not going to give it to anybody. But anyway, it was a fun experiment. It just didn't work. So I hope you try this recipe. I hesitated to share it because it's such a cherished family recipe, but I've grown to love you all so much. I wanted to share it with you and hope that you love it as much as our family does. And if I don't see you before, happy St. Valentine's. And until we're together again, take care.